My name's Mrs. Kang. I'm one of the sociology teachers here at the college. I've been teaching sociology for 11 years now. We have a wonderful staff team of 9 sociology teachers at the college, so you could be with either one of us. I'm also the assistant curriculum lead for the subject, so I have the overview of the subject as well. It's a very popular subject. Many students choose to study it and then go on to study sociology related subjects. So sociology is an academically rigorous subject. It is considered a hard subject and not a soft subject, despite sometimes people might say, oh, do sociology, it's easy. I can assure you it's not. It's exciting, it's really interesting because we're studying current events, like what's going on in our world, what's going on in society, what's going on globally, how does that impact us as people? And therefore, we do use a lot of research. It's not necessarily about your opinions, it's about looking at different perspectives. Your own perspectives will be challenged, like things that you may have come across already, you'll be looking at in different ways. It is about the real life around us, so you'll relate the subject to your own life, to the world around you, your family, your friend circles. It's about really developing critical thinking skills, and that's why it's a very popular subject. Critical thinking skills are now a key skill for you to have, in the sense that you can explore the world and look at things from different angles, use different pieces of research and evidence to support ideas, and that's what's required in the subject. And sometimes that's what can make it quite difficult. You're having to use different sources of information as well as learning it and applying it. But we help you with all that. We help you to develop those critical thinking skills, so it becomes like second nature. That when we present a bit of evidence to you, eventually, after a few months of studying with us, you'll be like, oh, what about this? What about this? It's missing this. We can criticise it from this angle. How about another way of viewing this? And that's what critical thinking is. Not just taking something at face value, but really pulling it apart and looking at everything from different angles. And as I said, everything in sociology, because it's about studying people and society, we've all got our own experiences, and that's great. But one of the things we can't use in the exam and essays is I think this, I think that. When we back up ideas and that critical thinking, it's got to come from evidence. Now, evidence might be statistics, it might be theories, it might be studies and research that sociologists and others have already done. So that's what the subject involves. In terms of assessment, there is no coursework, so I'll start with that straight away because that's a very popular question that we get. It's all exams at the end of year 2. And the exams are actually made up of a range of different questions. So on paper 1 and paper 3, you will get like 4, 6, 10-mark questions, but then they do go up to 30-mark essays as well on those 2 exam papers. Now, 30-mark essays is extended writing, so you'll be familiar to that sort of working in English literature in particular. On paper 2, we have 10-mark essays and 20-mark essays as well. So you can't avoid essays, and that's something we say straight away, that if you don't like writing or extended writing, it's something to think about because there's a lot of it in this subject. The only way that you can pass sociology is through extended writing skills, because that's what's required. And if you look at the marks for the papers, every single one of your exam papers is made up of 80 marks. And some of them have got 30-mark essays on them. So that's a substantial amount of marks. Again, as long as you put in the work, we will guide you on how to create really good essays. We start that very, very early as well. You're given all the support and structure to enable you to do that. So by year 2, you're just writing essays and we just give you a question. You can see there, paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, the structure in front of you. Each exam's worth 33.3% of your overall grade as well. Now, of course, that's what it looks like in an ideal world. I think it's very obvious we are under a very different kind of scenario at the minute with COVID, and it'll be really interesting to see. But this is the structure of the 2-year course as it stands at the moment. Moving on, you'll notice some of the topics. So the 3 main exams are really themed around education with theory and method topics. I'll go through that in a bit more detail, and then crime and deviance with theory and method. Theory method is going back to what I just said about evidence. There's lots of different sociologists, there's lots of different views within sociology, and therefore your development of theory is required. Sociologists also do a lot of research. You know, we can't just say, I think this, like I said to you at the start. It's about research, it's about evidence to support, and therefore we've got to look at how we research human behaviour. Just remember that people are very complex. People can say one thing and do another, and therefore there's a very big challenge in terms of researching people, but also society and the world around us. There's also challenges in terms of, well, what methods do we use? Do we ask people questions? Do we watch them and observe them? Do we do it undercover so that they don't change their behaviour? And there's some of the things that you'll get to investigate throughout the 2 years, because theory method is kind of interlinked into all the papers. Let me skip past this bit. We'll go into a bit more detail about the topic areas. So we tend to start with families, even though that's your paper 2 exam, largely because we try and get you to understand sociology coming from your family, carers, households, whatever setup you might be in. The idea is that sociologists fundamentally believe that your upbringing, whoever's been influencing that, has a big impact on your development and who you become as a person. So we look at families, different types of families. We look at how families are linked to society as well, and why we need families in society. We look at how governments impact policies. We look at demography, like birth rates, death rates. We look at what's going on in the population. We've got a lot of older population. And for example, under COVID, we know our older generation was impacted more. We look at marriage, cohabitation, divorce. We look at how families are different culturally, religious factors, single parenting, sexual orientation, etc. We look at and understand that everybody's different and has a different setup. But what does that mean? We look at power relationships. We do have to cover very sensitive issues like domestic violence, abuse, etc. And we don't hide around those areas, because it's a fundamental part of human behaviour to understand that everything isn't always positive. And we've got to look at why some people behave in that way. We also look at children and childhood. We look at how that's changed in society as well. We look at education, and it's really interesting to actually study education when you're a part of it, the system. You know, things like, you've been in the education system from about the age of 4 or 5. Compulsory, you're going to be involved with us up until the age of 18, and most of you are coming to us for that part of your education. What does that mean? You know, what kind of schooling experiences have you had, positive, negative? Again, why do we need education? Is it to teach you the basics, fundamentals, or is it about conformity and control? Thinking about things like you all have to wear the same uniform. Some sociologists believe that's a bit robotic and making everybody be the same. So there's lots and lots of different things. We look at how education benefits people, but also there's negative impacts, because not everybody experiences education in the same way. We look at inequalities, why some groups do better. Like in middle class children do better in education than working class children. Girls are outperforming boys right now. Why is that? We look at so many factors, as well as cultural, ethnic factors as well. We also look at how governments impact policy. You know, if you keep an eye on it right now, the government keeps changing its mind about what we're doing in September. They're telling us now that we're going to have colleges, schools open again. But a few weeks ago, they were telling us only, you know, primary schools were opening and social distancing needs to happen. There's so much to keep an eye on in the news, especially over the summer, that has an impact on what we'll be doing when you join us. We look at crime and deviance, massive problem globally in terms of not everybody behaves, and that's why we have crime. But we also look at who creates the laws. We don't always agree with the laws. There's huge movements right now that you'll be aware of, especially through the Black Lives Matter, which is very much about changing social control, policing, practices. And we're going to be looking and discussing and researching all of that as well. We've got other issues like global warming. Should that be a crime, that we're destroying the environment that we live in? There's so much in crime and deviance. We also look at this notion that we think criminals are negative, bad people, but some criminals have actually gone on to change the world positively when we think about revolutionaries. So lots and lots of issues in there. We look at, as you can see there, human rights, state crime. We've got to be aware that governments and people in power aren't always innocent themselves. And we've got to look at these things. And this is what I was saying about critical thinking. It's not just about what you've known so far. It's about challenging everything. And almost sometimes people say you do sociology to see what it's really like to live in the world. We look at crime control. I've just set a task actually to my year twos yesterday, asking them to research how much CCTV we have in this country, because we are a CCTV nation and we're looking at the impact of that on our behaviour. So lots and lots to do with crime. A lot of our students pick sociology because of this unit. We have a specific unit on crime and deviance, which a lot of students who want to study law or criminology really find beneficial because we cover so much in that unit as well. And then we also do beliefs in society, which again is so significant to the world that we're living in now. You know, there's the arguments that religion doesn't matter anymore, but actually when you look at it in a global picture, religion's very significant in other places. Religion continues in this country to be significant to ethnic minorities, and we look at why that is. But we also look at science and how that's challenged religion. We look at new religious movements like cults and sects and how they've become fascinating, especially with the internet media world that we've got out there. We look at secularization, the idea that people don't believe anymore. But we'll be looking at stuff again, like with COVID-19 hitting us, people will have turned to God because all of a sudden science couldn't help us again because we didn't have a cure, but we're still trying to find it. So what do you do then when you're faced with uncertainty? People tend to go back to God and faith, and there's going to be so much significance. So what I'm getting you to think about really is just be aware of what's going on around us, because all this is going to be significant, and it ties right into the sociology specification in terms of what we'll be studying and looking at as well. And then finally, as I mentioned, theory and method, it's such a big part of sociology. We look at almost like debates, and there's some debates there in front of you, like should we be using quantitative statistical methods to investigate humans, or should we be looking at more qualitative, detailed methods? Should we do research ourselves, or should we look at research from others? There's all sorts of ideas in there that we can draw on, but theory methods is very much about understanding how we find out about people and what sociologists already tell us. So that's just a little insight into the course content. It's fascinating. I'm going to be biased anyway, but I believe everybody should study sociology because, as I said, it's about the world around you, and we have unbelievably gone through so much change this year globally, but also in the UK. That is going to be so significant for you to bring your experiences, and we'll be looking at how the impact actually of what we're going through right now is going to shape society in the future as well. So I think I've covered all this already. So some of the things that we tend to cover is things like the climate crisis, how has COVID-19 impacted society, the world, what's it going to look like? The Black Lives Matter movement has just taken a huge global presence, and we'll be looking at that in more detail. Why do students do well at school? Why do others not do so well? Why do women live longer than men? As I said, about church attendance falling, why government crime statistics might not be reliable. Why do we still in 2020 have a gender pay gap between men and women? There's so many issues that we cover across the board in this subject. And finally, another popular question that we tend to get is career opportunities and further education. A lot of our students go on to study sociology, social policy, social work. There's so many career opportunities, teaching. I've had students go on to do sports psychology and stuff like that. The reality is law tends to be really popular, criminology, etc. But sociology is a subject of studying society, people, behaviour, and therefore it's never going to stop you, in a sense, from going into any field almost. Of course, if you're interested in sciences and stuff like that, that's different. But sociology tends to be a subject that just gives you that insight, that critical thinking that you develop in this subject is now becoming very, very valuable at university, especially the essay writing, because that's what a lot of university work is about, but also in terms of your awareness and the confidence that you gain as an individual also. That's enough from me. I think I've talked quite a bit. We've got about 10 minutes now. I'm going to have a quick look at this Q&A. If there's any questions, have a little think about what I've just said, and I'll open up the box now and start answering some of your questions. So, So somebody's asked a question about careers. So again, careers specifically, a lot of our students, as I say, across the board go on to so many different careers. I've got students that are now teachers, I've got students that have gotten into social work, I've got students that are working with police, research bodies, etc. I've got a student who's now just qualified as a sports psychologist. It's endless, really. It's worth looking at if you've got a career in mind. For university, etc., because some students obviously have a clear idea of what they want to do. It's worth just thinking, is there any specific subjects that you must study? Because then sociology can just become that subject that is just going to give you that additional kind of key in. It's never really been a disadvantage for anybody unless you want to become a doctor, but then you should be studying 3 sciences. Outside of that, it's just a subject that tends to give people a real insight, because as we know, we're always going to end up in whatever fields we go into working with people and the world that we live in, and therefore this subject gives you that understanding of people. Okay, it's another question. What would you recommend we should research and learn ahead of time? Any books that you can give us a deeper understanding? I would say keep an eye on the world around you, keep an eye on the media, listen out to what's going on, like globally as well. That's the best research that you could do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to read books. I'm going to tell you to keep an eye on the media. In particular, the media, we tend to say, don't just look at like BBC News. We tend to say to our sociology students, look at global media, because sometimes you'll find the way that one news outlet presents a story is very different to another. So, you know, use social media. That seems to be very, very interesting these days for spreading information. But again, use it with a pinch of salt, because it's not always accurate. So the best research that you could do is continue to develop your awareness of what we're going through as a society, and globally what the picture looks like. So, for example, COVID-19, we knew it was coming to the UK, and there's arguments, for example, did we lock down too late? But other parts of the world locked down early, and that's what you should be looking at globally. You know, what was the impact of places like New Zealand locking down before they even had a death compared to us? And they're the kind of things that your awareness and understanding of before you come to us would be quite good. But also, like I said, having a look at like schools opening, where do we stand with that? What is the impact now? You know, you guys have experienced it yourself in terms of not being at school since March. Is that going to impact us? Is the fact that you didn't get to sit exams going to impact us? So just reflecting on your own experiences will be really, really good for your understanding as well. Just going to move on to another question. A good question here. Just wanted to ask what exam board we use. We use AQA for sociology. We have a very good relationship with the exam board. I'm actually going to be phoning them today to talk about our experience of distance learning. And we do get the exam board to actually come in and do a lot of work with you. Sometimes we do presentations. Sometimes they come in and do up-to-date training with the staff as well. So it's AQA, and you can go on their website and have a look at the course content, as well as our own website, WQE Online. There's another interesting question there about pass rate for sociology. Just to give you an idea of how many students we tend to have sitting the exam, at WQE, we are now one of the largest centres for sociology in the East Midlands. So we deal with, like, I think we've just had just under 300 students in year 2 now that have gone on to pass sociology. Pass rates largely, we're at about, I think, 96% pass rate. A star to E is the pass rate, although our goal is to obviously get that to 100%, but there are factors sometimes outside of our control. A lot of our students, on average, tend to get at least a grade, often 2 grades better than what their predicted grades are. So we've got outstanding staff that will help you get the grade that you want to. One of our lines tends to be, this is your target grade, it's a minimum. What do you want to get in this subject? And we tend to work with you to get you to that grade. And that's the way a lot of the staff work. You know, minimum target grades, etc., tend to just be that minimum. That's what we believe. You know, we want to push you to your potential. Just because your target grade says C doesn't mean we're going to get you the C. We're most likely going to get you a B. That's how hard we work with our students at WQE, and I'm very proud of that reputation across all members of staff as well. That's a nice question. Do students tend to get involved with debates and discussions quite quickly after starting college or studying sociology? Oh, immediately. If you're that quiet student, you're not going to be quiet for very long in my class. Okay, so that's one of the things, we get you involved. And I say that largely because it's a key skill. You've got to be confident today in the world that we're dealing with. You know, and we develop that. We're not going to pick on you straight away. We're going to help you develop that confidence so that you become a confident individual at the end of 2 years of leaving us. You know, we want you to learn sociology, we want you to get really good grades, but we're really interested in developing you as the next person that's going to be that confident individual that's going to go on to achieve great things. And that's how we work with you. And if you've got the confidence to join debates and discussions straight away, brilliant. You're going to get involved anyway, because there's very few hiding places in the classrooms. With any other staff, actually, we like to get you involved, and you'll want to get involved, especially with the discussions that we're having. And everybody's different individual points are valid. There's no right or wrong in sociology, by the way. It's all about debates and backing up what you say, and that's the beauty of the subject. Here's another one. Can I have a career in criminal psychology without doing psychology? I think for criminal psychology, you do need to study psychology. That's my understanding. But again, you'd have to look at different universities and what they offer, because some may take a study in sociology. The thing with psychology is it is very much more focused on the individual, where sociology tends to look at society on a broader level. So there are differences between the disciplines. So definitely worth checking that out in terms of actual criminology at university and what they require if it's paired with psychology. That's a good question. Does sociology link in well with business, as they're both about how the world works? Yes, absolutely. Sociology tends to go with a lot of other subjects. Like, there's not a subject that it doesn't tend to go with. Sometimes our science students pick sociology as their third subject because they just want a different subject, something different. So yeah, with business, very popular. A lot of our students do study business and sociology, and it gives them very different perspective. Often there's cross-curricular links as well between the subjects that can also make it easier for you to get that kind of comprehensive understanding. If you're doing GCSE, so yeah, as I said at the start, some schools do offer GCSE. We do suggest that you do have a go at all the taster materials. If there's any work that's come through your schools already, please do have a go at it, because it gives us a bit of an insight already into you. What revision guides do you need? I actually write the revision guides for sociology, so save you a bit of money. I always make them available to students. We do have revision guides that you can buy, but based on the studies and the research that we use at this institution, we will always give you a revision guide, and then there's others optional for you to look at. So you'll always be given my revision guide in particular, which is available to all sociology students. It's on WQE Online, so you'll get that in line with the course. Support. Another question, is there a form of support at WQE for helping students with looking into universities? Yeah, we have a huge support. So for example, our year 12s are now being introduced as first year students are being introduced to university now over the next couple of weeks. They'll start breaking down applications. We support them through that. It's a large part of what we do is getting you to your next destination. So there will be a lot of support on hand for you. I think that's it. Oh, there's a few more coming through. To answer these ones. Will we have to create a lot of presentations to present our ideas? All teachers are different in terms of their approach to teaching and learning. So I like to do presentations here and there. Again, it's part of that developing your confidence. I can assure you now, in most professions and in most universities, presentations are a key skill where they get you to stand up. So if we can give you that kind of head start in our comfortable, safe environment at the college, to develop that key skill. It's only going to be in your benefit. But again, we do it in different ways. I've worked with students who are really shy, who are worried, and sometimes they'll just be the one that's clicking the PowerPoint to start with. But then in a few weeks' time, they'll also be the person that's presenting. So we're never going to throw you in the deep end. I know it's a new place and it seems scary, but we are here to support you every step of the way, and we work with you and what you're comfortable with. This is a good question. Will we have mock exams at the end of year 12, and does it depend on whether you can continue? Yes, we do have mock exams. Obviously the format of them has been a little bit different with distance learning. We tend to have mock exams actually throughout the year, to be honest. So for year 12, in a typical year, you will do a December, January, it depends, sometimes we do it before Christmas, sometimes after. You will do a mini mock then, where we try and have a quick look at where you are. Bear in mind, by Christmas, you've done a substantial amount of the school year, or college year already. And then we do another one at the end. It tends to fall in May, June time, before students tend to go off for real exams. So then there's lots of opportunities to do timed essays and stuff within college time as well, within your classrooms. The other thing to think about, yes, it does impact to some degree, although you are signing up to a 2-year course with us, and we are going to get you through that. But if there are huge alarm bells at the end of year 12, then we will have that discussion with you, because my phrase is failure is not an option, and I haven't let a student fail in my class for a very long time. So, you know, we are here to help you. So, you know, if we feel that year 13 might not be best for you, we may discuss you doing our AS course, where there's a better chance for you to get the grade. That's very few students, and I'm talking about out of just under 300 students, that tends to be like 3 or 4 that we're talking about. So, but you know, we're here to give you the correct information and guidance. That's the key, and that's a big part of what we do here. How many sociology classes are there? Good question. I've just been given some numbers, but I think this year, just to give you an insight, we are huge. So we had 11 second year classes, 13 first year classes. That's huge numbers that we're talking about. Do teachers get concerned if students struggle with the mini mocks? Yeah, it's our job, isn't it? But it wouldn't be a surprise. We know our students very, very well. We get to know you. We know what you're about, and we'll be supporting you all the way. So actually, by the time you get to mini mocks, it's to see, the way we see it is, it's right, you've got this grade. How do we get you to the grade that you need to? And what do we need? What work do we need to do together? You know, what are your strengths? Because we always focus on that first, and then how do we get you to work on the areas of development to make sure you get to the grade that you want to. So it's a concern in terms of how do we support you. So yeah, that's part of our job. What types of questions are asked in exams? Loads. You can go on the AQA website and look at some actual example sociology papers. We do have some question banks on WQE online as well. But the big essays, like the 30-mark essays, might be like debates. They might be asking about a specific theory, like functionist views of society. Sometimes they tend to be internal factors impact students performing at school, and that's a debate where you would discuss internal factors versus external. It's a huge range, because sociology is such a big subject. We will get you familiar with lots and lots of exam questions, but it doesn't tend to be what they ask you. The key skill that you'll get from us is that you'll be able to answer any question. You just need to make sure you learn your knowledge, because breaking down questions is a technique that we will teach you. But you can get asked about any questions across the specification, but we'll talk more about that when you join us and you see how the papers are formed as well. There's a question there. What is AS? AS is, under the old system a few years ago, you could do an AS qualification and then you could build it into an A-level, but that changed under the curriculum reform. So AS is now a separate qualification. It counts as half an A-level, basically. So that's what I mean. Like, if you weren't doing too well, and we felt that you were better taking a good grade in the AS as half an A-level, still recognised by universities, it just gives you half the points, then we would advise you to do that. But we do have AS as a separate course anyway for some students who use it as a bridging, or who are only with us on different pathways. But for the majority of our students, it is the A-level programme that you're on. How many students per class? I think the college cap used to be around 24. I've been at the college and I've never had more than 24 students in my class, so that tends to be a manageable number. Often, sometimes it's a bit less than that. It depends on how many classes we've got on altogether. But you're not going to be in a class of 30, for example. That's just not doable at A level anyway. It's something the college is really focused on, good quality teaching and learning, and that does have an impact on what we can do with you. I think this is the last question. Are teachers happy to work with students out of lesson time if necessary? Most staff will always be available to you. Most staff are obviously very busy, often working across 2 sites as well, because remember we have 2 sites as well, so that can have an impact. Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself at this point. Like, as a teacher, you can drop in and see me at lunch break if I'm around. I'm always going to be around to help students. We're always accessible, very much on email, etc. We're always happy to work with students, but we're not going to be really particularly giving up time for students who are deliberately not doing the work. Like, you know, you're not doing your homework, or you haven't turned up to a lesson or something like that, then we're going to struggle to give up some of our time. But most staff, when it's genuine reasons to support, we're always available. Largely online at the moment, on email, but yeah, but staff tend to have a kind of an open door policy, drop into the office, drop into the classroom if they're free. And we do have a very, very supportive environment across the college, really, not just in sociology as well. Your lessons, as I understand it, your lessons should be in one place, ideally. It might not be the case for everybody. That comes down to timetabling and subjects that you've chosen, but that's a more generic question that only college can answer, really. Sociology as a subject is actually represented on both campuses, so I can speak for that. Experienced sociology staff are at Regent Road campus as well as University Road campus. English as an additional language, yep, it is. EAL is something that all institutions have to recognise, and we do have support systems. We have a really, really good learning support department that can work with students where there's any other additional needs. Sometimes it's like English as an additional language, sometimes it's just key skills, revising, helping you with that sort of stuff. We do have really, really good learning support, and you are given mentors as well, PPMs, who support you, who are almost like, I think you'll be used to having like tutors or mentor groups, tutor groups in schools. You get assigned a PPM that is your kind of first point for anything, and they support you through your 2-year journey with us as well. Okay, I hope that's answered all the questions. Is there any more? Telling me that I've answered 23 questions. Okay, well, it's been a pleasure. I hope we do get to enrol you over the summer and that you do join us in September, and we can see you hopefully face to face at that point, but we don't know what the agenda is. Again, like I said, look out for it. Things are changing rapidly, and the best thing for sociology you can do is just keep your ear to the ground, see what's going on around you, and come back with all that knowledge and understanding that you've developed for yourself. I'm going to sign off on that note. Goodbye, stay safe, see you soon, bye.